A desperate and flailing Donald Trump is currently being roasted on social media for peddling probably the most ridiculous conspiracy theory he's come up with yet, and it's about crowd sizes and AI, and we have to talk about it. But before we do, if you end up liking this video and you want to support the channel, please be sure to hit the like, subscribe, and alert bells before you go. All right, friends, probably shouldn't surprise you what I'm about to share with you, given how pathetic and narcissistic Donald Trump is, and there seems to be no limit to how low he'll go. But what we have here is Donald Trump claiming repeatedly on Truth Social and elsewhere, and so are many Trump surrogates, that a crowd which assembled outside a rally for Vice President Harris and Governor Tim Walz in Detroit, that the crowd was actually fake, that there was no one there, and the whole thing was generated by artificial intelligence. As Harry Sisson, a Gen Z TikTok Democratic surrogate, is mentioning, and we'll go into, like I said, various examples. He gives an example. Trump says, everything about Kamala is fake. Look, we caught her with a fake crowd. There was nobody there. And it shows Harris Walz supporters outside Air Force Two, which is the official designation of the vice presidential plane. Air Force One being for the president, President Biden. Air Force Two being for the vice president, Vice President Harris. Again, we'll go into some specific examples because he's made multiple unhinged, all caps posts about this on Truth Social. But to provide you for some context, recently, Donald Trump had the disastrous press conference at Mar-a-Lago. And this was after a few of the rallies by Vice President Harris and Governor Walz. And they, it was widely reported that these things were quite populated, quite energetic. And Trump was asked about the Harris-Walz rallies, and he got very defensive very quickly, multiple times during that press conference. But I'll just play you a quick reminder.
Say it.
Are you worried at all about the size of Harris's crowds?
Oh, give me a break. Listen, I had 107,000 people in New Jersey. You didn't report it. I'm so glad you asked. What did she have yesterday? 2,000 people? If I ever had 2,000 people, you'd say my campaign is finished. It's so dishonest, the press. And here's a great example. I had in Michigan recently 25,000 people, and 25,000 people we just couldn't get them in. We had in Harrisburg 25,000 people, and 20,000 people couldn't get in. We had so many. Nobody ever mentions that. When she gets 1,500 people, and I saw it yesterday on ABC, where they said, oh, the crowd was so big. I have 10 times, 20 times, 30 times the crowd size. And no, they never say the crowd was big. That's why I'm always saying turn around the cameras. I'm so glad you asked that. I think it's so terrible when you say, well, she has 1,500 people, 1,000 people, and they talk about, oh, the enthusiasm. Let me tell you, we have the enthusiasm. The Republican Party, and me as a candidate, but the Republican Party has the enthusiasm.
So as you can tell, he's very triggered by that. He also said multiple times, like he brought it up again and again and again repeatedly throughout that multi-hour press conference. He even went so far as to say that he has spoken to bigger crowds than Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. did as well, even though that is emphatically not true. Like he had to go out of his way. I'm better. Harris, Obama, MLK, I have bigger crowds than anybody. So again, let's break some of this down. So Dinesh D'Souza, a discredited historian and Trump supporter, also fed fuel into this conspiracy theory. Check the reflection in the plane. Does this look like a real picture to you? Again, he's talking about the crowd that showed up in Detroit. Republican voters against Trump, they shared some of this as well. This is one of the many unhinged posts that Donald Trump made. Has anyone noticed that Kamala cheated at the airport? She cheated at the airport. There was nobody at the plane, and so she AI'd it and showed a massive crowd of so-called followers, but they didn't exist. She was turned in by a maintenance worker at the airport when he noticed the fake crowd picture, but there was nobody there, later confirmed by the reflection of the mirror of the finish on the vice presidential plane. She's a cheater. She had nobody waiting, and the crowd looked like 10,000 people. Same thing is happening with her fake crowds at her speeches. This is the way the Democrats win elections, by cheating, and they're even worse at the ballot box. She should be disqualified because the creation of a fake image is election interference. Anyone who does that will cheat at anything. So to recap, he says that they're faking the images, that they're faking the videos of the crowds, that everybody knows this. And by the way, that doing this, faking the images, faking the crowds, using AI to do these things, which is obviously not true. But he says she should be disqualified. She shouldn't be able to run. She should be barred from running for president of the United States. Same guy, by the way, who whined incessantly when Republican voters filed lawsuits in various states around the country saying that Trump was disqualified from running for president because he staged an insurrection, which violated Section 3 of the 14th Amendment. So think about this. Trump constantly, I mean, he also said it, by the way, about Secretary Clinton in 2016, because she had been investigated by the FBI. Nobody under investigation should be eligible to run for president. My God, you can't have a felon president. So in every time he runs for office, he demands that not only he win, but that the person against whom he's running be disqualified, be unable to run for X, Y, or Z reasons. But then when Republican voters file lawsuits citing the Constitution, hey, a constitutional prohibition against insurrectionists holding high office, ergo Donald Trump should not be allowed to run for president or hold high office, he and those same Republicans who want Harris and Clinton and Biden disqualified cry foul. You can't disqualify Trump no matter what he does. But any of Trump's opponents should be disqualified because he doesn't like what they're doing. Ridiculous stuff. Enormous hypocrisy, which, by the way, should be emphasized again and again and again as we make fun of these people. Mediaites reported on this. Trump posts absolutely bonkers conspiracy about Kamala Harris crowd size easily disproven by video evidence. And we'll get into the vice president's response, by the way, because she did respond. At issue is an image that emerged from a Harris Walz rally held at the Detroit Metro Airport. An image of Air Force Two has been shared by conspiracists, insisting that inconsistencies in a news photo reveal some sort of digital malfeasance, like AI or Photoshop, that shows it's not real. Take, for example, this social media post from disgraced filmmaker, blah, blah, blah. We read the Dinesh D'Souza example. The thing is, the allegation that the large crowd in attendance can be easily disproven in a 30-second internet search that reveals a video of the event, like this promoted by X account breaking 911. So the Harris Walz War Room campaign produced this video as well. Let's take a look. So there you go. There you go. It is a video crowd. There are multiple videos of these things out there, but it is not stopping Trump from ranting. Jon Favreau of Pod Save America, former Obama speechwriter, responded from just a couple of hours ago. Axios, having this editorial, this expose where they say inside the Trump slump, advisors plead with Trump to adopt new hard-hitting focused stump speech to define Vice President Harris. And they are begging him to stop being unhinged and undisciplined, to which Jon Favreau quoted the situation and said, alas, their prayers have not been answered. And then we'll get to Vice President Harris's response. The Kamala HQ, the vice president's official campaign Twitter page, she said, number one, this is an actual photo of a 15,000 person crowd for Harris Walz in Michigan. Number two, Trump has still not campaigned in a swing state in over a week. Low energy. So folks, the reason it's interesting to point this out is because I just want you to imagine, again, this should be one of, if not the predominant litmus test you take yourself and ask others to take about this election. What would it be like if Vice President Harris did something like this, or if President Biden did something like this? Just took a picture of a crowd of Trump supporters or a Trump rally and just said the whole thing was fake. There was literally nobody there. It was all AI'd. How would right-wing and mainstream media respond to that? It'd be wall-to-wall nonstop coverage. The New York Times, the so-called liberal mainstream media, would have one headline after another about how unhinged Biden is or Harris is for, invoking such a ridiculous conspiracy theory. But because it's Trump and we're numb to him, this is going to be a flash in the pan. He's going to be made fun of. And if you go on Twitter right now, you'll see journalist after journalist after journalist commenting on this, as well they should. But this should dominate headlines. Like any single thing that Trump does, anything, you want to talk about disqualifying, is disqualifying. Any single transgression of Donald Trump is just objectively far worse than any single transgression we've seen from President Biden and Kamala Harris. You take the worst thing that Joe Biden has ever done politically in terms of like campaigning and such like that, any falsehood, any lies, any ridiculous moment, you don't even have to take the worst thing that Trump has done. Just take a random thing that he does on Tuesday. And what Trump does is just objectively worse because he's more dishonest than any Democrat. He's dumber than any Democrat. He's more morally bankrupt than any Democrat. And this is something that the press should be talking about. They should be holding these people to the same standard. And if you do that, if you hold Democrats and Republicans, Harris and Trump to the same standard, Trump will always lose because he's just objectively worse in every area. Absolutely unhinged. Nobody there. AI came up with the whole thing. Harris is a cheater. This AI photo means she can't run for president. Disqualify her. Basically, just make me president, please. Remember, this is the same guy who in 2022 famously publicly said that you should terminate the Constitution if need be. You should evict President Biden from the White House based on evidence of widespread voter fraud, which they've never produced, but you should overturn the election, remove Biden from the White House because he'd already been in the White House for over a year at that point, and name Trump president again. He wants the whole thing handed to him. Kicking out current presidents, disqualifying presidential candidates in every damn election cycle he's called for it, and even shredding the Constitution if need be. The guy is a malignantly narcissistic authoritarian loser who is objectively worse in all areas than any Democratic candidate. And that's exactly how we should be phrasing it, and stop pretending that there's a comparability between the candidates. There's not. This is ridiculous. And in any sane electorate, Donald Trump would be plummeting in the polls even more than he already is. Let me know what you think in the comments.